Hello. Oh. Can you hear me is the important part. It says you can. What the hell was that about? Hello. Let's have another go, shall we? Let's get everyone back in. Testing. 1, 2. Yep, that should work. Whew. I didn't even know it's possible to make a private live video. What's the point of that? Two live streams in one day. I was there for about 15 minutes and thinking no one was alerted to the new stream. So I started just troubleshooting one of my tracks while I was waiting. And then I saw the comment saying it was private. Disaster. Absolute disaster. Hello, Florian. So what were we talking about? I've managed to purge, I think, 70 viewers. It's more like a house party now. Nice little gathering. Oh, here we go. People are coming back gradually. I'll give people a chance to get back in. We were talking about bears. Oh, bear with me. I hope you're not taking the mick out of my spelling, because bear with me spelt like that is the correct way to spell it.
I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go, collateral effects. All the boys say I'm a little salty, but they kinda like it.
The real ones are still here. Yes, Dominic. I was probably held deep into some epic rant about something that was not too consequential, I'm sure. Ah, right, yes. Plug-in gain staging. Is that what we were talking about? I could just actually bring up the live stream and find out where I stopped talking. That's what I could do. There I am. Oh wow, that one. It was a good 10 minutes, wasn't it? That one. It's because I was showing YouTube, I wonder. Right, so yeah, my mic went off about 13 minutes from the end. Hello. Live stream inception. Yeah, that's weird. Right, so let me just see what I was doing on the screen there. I was talking about Yeah, we got straight into plugin headroom. The problem, as far as I can tell, was 1, 2, 1. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm paranoid now. I keep looking at OBS. Um, as far as I could tell, the problem was OBS just stopped receiving mic input from my RME. And I do have a suspicion why that might be. Because right now, to solve a routing problem, I do have my RME plugged in via a USB hub. Which, if you've ever done any professional music, you might know is a terrible idea. The thing with RME, though, is they just usually work in a lot of circumstances, which is one of the reasons I rely on them. They just work. Having said that, that just happened. So, but it's probably because it's plugged into a hub, and it's yeah. Either way, I'm going to stop going between YouTubes and just stick with the live stream, if that's cool, just in case that happens again. It took me, I was so far into the rant, about 10 minutes, it took me a minute to realize you guys couldn't hear me. So, yeah, I think it was the fact well, I'm going to blame OBS because everything else was fine. Tom, are you running a bath? This track, what kick am I running? TA9DH kick, one shot deep. It will be a splice pack. There's a bit of top kick from the top loops here. Oh, you can see I've automated EQ in this one, by the way. Useful tip for anyone who wants certain drums out of a top loop, but not others. Listen to it without. I presume it's a full loop. Yeah. I basically needed as much as a kick removed as possible, but I liked the low mids on that tom, conga, whatever it is. So it gets automated. Again, paying attention to groove. Right, so I was answering JM's question. Was it JM? I know you just asked it. It was about plugins. Do I consider the level going into plugins? And the answer is yes. Let me go back to our tape example. So first of all, you need to know if the plugin is linear or non-linear. Like an EQ plugin wouldn't be, most EQ plugins like digital EQs are not non-linear, they're linear. Hello, Eliza. So what that means is the response from the input is equal to the output. Obviously minus the change of the plugin, but it's in a linear fashion. So if there's 6 dB at the top end, it stays 6 dB at the top end linearly. A non-linear plugin would be something that causes distortion, like, for example, this tape simulator. So this is a fully, well, not mastered, but mastered level track. It's coming in at 0. Most plugins expect a lower level in general, because people don't work like me, do they? They don't have their mix already at mastering level. So most plugins tend to expect somewhere between -20, -10, probably. You can see the default here. This plugin actually lets you select its internal headroom level. Some plugins do this, some don't. So it's expecting -12. So where you'll see the meter gets pinned here. You've got the kick. Good, good. So yes, I have made a plugin called Headroom. I say it's a plugin. It's just a Ableton rack. You can make this in most DAWs now, which let you create your own. It's just a level in and a level out. So when I put my tape plugin in the middle of these two, I can add headroom, and what that's doing is just turning one down before and turning the one up afterwards by the same amount. As you can see now, if I go about here, we're -10 in. The plugin is much happier. Probably in its sweet spot. And I have a global output here, just in case the plugin happens to add just in case the plugin happens to add its own level. Anyway, yes, so I do consider the level of my plugins, but it does rely on the knowledge of knowing whether a plugin is linear or non-linear. Basically, if it involves any harmonics at all, it's probably non-linear. So yes, be careful of what level you feed a plugin. Or hardware, doesn't matter if it's digital or analog. It's all, unless it's a digital EQ or something utility-like, it's probably not, it doesn't care about level. But Eliza, we discussed this earlier. Is analog gear significant to production quality? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's got nothing to do with it, in my opinion.
Like you wanna.
I mean, for example, on a soft track like this, I might add something like a tape simulator like this if I'm not going for if I don't need really punchy transients, really snappy snares, because tapes take away transients, right? So I might lean into the whole warm thing if I'm not too bothered about having really standout drums. This adds a nice little bit of weight at the bottom. Hopefully you can hear. Might be hard to hear through the YouTube compression. Pretty subtle, but that might be why I go for analog. It's a flavor decision for me. But in terms of professional use of high quality productions, no, it's not necessary at all. I haven't used analog gear for any of the, I mean, other than recording the microphone of the performance of the singer, maybe my guitar or the occasional bongo or something like that, if that kind of analog. I haven't used analog gear on any of the songs that have got me 300 plus million streams. So no. It depends what you think of the quality of my songs is like, but obviously I is in the quality is in the behearer. But no, in my opinion, not necessary at all. We did joke about the only people that argue that kind of things are the kind of neckbeards that hang around on forums and don't finish any music. So if you've got that, if that's part of your doubts as to why your sound is there, just delete that theory immediately. Is there any plugin that can match your song to the quality of the reference? No. There's no magic plugin which just makes you sound like the reference. You have to get all of your sounds right at the sound selection stage. If you've got a completely different kick drum and completely different bass, if you're in a completely different key, the key of your song is very important as well. You know, like Isotope make tools. What's the? I'm still on, I think, version 8. They're probably on version 11 now or something. The Isotope EQ has a matching setting, so I can match to any reference. But this is just frequency domain stuff. It doesn't suddenly give you a better kick drum. It's got a matching mode down here. You can say capture me. And then you can say match, say that's an inappropriate reference. Let me do this one. I say, right, match that one. I know these are both my tracks, but... And then you can say, give me what that track sounds like. So now this track sounds like that one. But the problem is, when you're in a different key, all these bass notes will be completely different, especially. So you might get bumps and troughs in the wrong area. So these things can't be relied on. And like I say, this is only an EQ curve. It's got nothing to do with the level of your reverb tails, you know, width of track, sounds used. Like I say, it doesn't give you a new kick drum. There's no magic plugin which can help you achieve your reference. You just have to get better at selecting the sounds closer to the reference. And don't be afraid to spend time there. I've spent an hour picking a kick drum easy before now. So hopefully, JM, I answered your question. Yes. If it's a non-linear plugin, yes, do consider the input level. Preferably compensate the output if you're doing my method, where I mix at mastering level, so you don't have to master. If you're following my method, then you definitely need to consider input level, because most plugins expect things quieter than I operate at. Good. Alice Clark. I mean, if you're really new and can you get the amygdala removed surgically? I'm afraid not. It's attached to the nervous system. You still technically need it for fight or flight response. It will stop you walking in front of a bus or ducking. It's the thing that makes you duck out the way when someone throws something at your head. So you need the amygdala. It just unfortunately gives you bad art decisions. Now you say nice kick drum on this track. The reason I actually loaded this whilst everyone was gone and the stream broke down, and I thought I'd broken it, I was in another stream for about 10 minutes there, and no one was arriving. So I thought I would just wait for people and crack on with this track, which has a bottom end problem. I thought I might as well quickly solve that before, because I was very rushed when I put this together at the end of the last studio session, and it was I left myself a note to come and look at this later. So I thought I would just have a quick look to find out what the bottom end problem was, because I didn't spot it in the studio. So it is a nice kick drum, but it might be too nice. Is it taking up all my headroom? No, not really. This isn't the session. I've just dragged in the tracks. So the reference is missing, but we were way short of the reference on volume by the end of the evening, and I couldn't figure out what had happened. That was part of the problem.
Dancing around, dancing around.
It does appear to be low.
Like you wanna get a little.
What happens if I just add 6 dB to the master?
Like you wanna get a little. Not.
No. We distort heavily. Can I turn down your stream? Actually, let me turn down OBS. Does this level affect you guys? You hearing that go up and down? It should do. I need to figure out a few things. So it is a 0 kick drum, this one. So this is not an option. That's weird. If that's a 0 kick drum. Oh, it's one of them really round, fat ones. I wonder if that's what's soaking up all my headroom. It's one of those deceptively deep ones. You can see the track has no sub problems. And that could have. Probably. Obviously check my bass. This is a bass guitar. I'm not using a sub. That's off. Do I need all that sub? Not really. We are side chaining from the kick. Let me side chain. Yeah, there is nothing to mix. There's no obvious issue here. In that it might just be a kick drum with no headroom. I've got a little selection here from... That one's not too bad. Suddenly we're not struggling, yeah. I think it's just a kick drum choice. bizarre. Yeah, I think it's just something about that kick drum that's a bit... I've not changed the pitch of it or anything, have I? Transpose? No. Sometimes when you alter them, they go a bit askew. No, I think it's just strange kick drum choice, that one. Anyway, sorry for... Hello, clipping, my old friend. Somewhere around there. Anyway. Now I can turn you guys back to normal, and I'll turn it down on Ableton. I like the sound of that tape on that track. I might add that back to the original. Yeah, the mono's good. Interesting. Interesting. This doesn't affect span, does it? No. That's a good question, Bashi. How do you know when you need a sub bass? Right, so the decision on all these tracks, we were talking earlier, I've been on a bit of a stint of the soulful disco type to that sound. This kind of sound. So for all of those, I used this, it's this plugin. It's the ample bass guitar. And because they're not big club tracks, these are just kind of more Spotify. They're supposed to be relaxing background kind of. They're actually aimed at the type of people who do barbecue disco type DJ sets. Anyway, not big club bottom end, and bass guitars are not very subby in general. So I could add a sub track to this, because bass guitars often need it. They're usually first harmonic dominant instead of fundamental dominant, like most sounds. Let me show you what I mean by that quickly, actually. Can I play? Is my... Yeah, keyboard's working. So if we look at, let me take off that side chain for a second there. If we look at a bass guitar, see the second harmonic? Well, sorry, your first harmonic, which is this one. It's dominant there instead of the actual note is this one. That's the 41 hertz is E. I'm pressing E right now. That would be 41 hertz. E0. So bass guitars do often need help in the sub department. I would high pass this, and if I was doing, say, a Purple Disco Machine type mix, we were talking about Purple Disco Machine earlier. If I was doing something nearer their mix, it would definitely need sub help because that wouldn't be big enough for the club. But because this is a relaxed, not necessarily a club track, I'm just going to let the kick drum bump down there. I'm not going to, and the kick drum itself isn't wild, right? It's not huge. So I might as well take advantage of the fact that it doesn't need that much finagling to get them two to work together, because the kick drum's going to be naturally lower than the bass, or the bass is dominant harmonics anyway. So in this case, I don't bother adding a sub. But like I say, if it was a much more like aggressive, big club production, I would always add a sub, usually separate sine wave, along with the main bass sound. If I show you in comparison if you just look at a normal saw wave, and pretty much any other sound, to be fair, if I play that note, you'll notice the fundamental is usually, in most sound cases, the dominant harmonic. So that's why bass guitars are a kind of an exception, and why you might consider a sub with one usually. But in this case, no, I don't think the track needs a really huge bottom end. In fact, we were just talking then about, well, I was, that this track has a bottom end problem, which I'm trying to solve. But anyway, yes, it's kind of a club thing. If you're making club music, you probably need a sub track. You don't always have to. Like, I'm being lazy with this bass guitar here. I've used the multiband compressor to sidechain it multiband. So each of these bands below 100, between 100 and 300, and above 300 all have their own sidechain, depending on what the kick is feeding, right? So as you can see, the sub band is -20. The upper mid band is -10. I've not bothered sidechaining anything above that. So you can kind of make any bass work without the need of a separate sub, because the point of a separate sub is to have separate control of your sidechain. So you have a cleaner low end, therefore more headroom for the entire track. That's kind of the whole purpose of the thing. But yeah, so as much control as you can get down there as possible is the reason you would do it. And if you need low end control and you're going for loud commercial club music, yes, I would suggest a sub track, just so you have that control. Simple sine wave is all it needs to be. Doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Just a simple sine wave. What genre are you in, Eliza? Are you struggling with reverb? Because in general, I advise to try and make a track without reverb. If the sounds don't sound good without reverb, there's usually a problem. Although that's kind of a little bit coming from my rock background. When you first hear some of the, I can't remember who mixed them. I know obviously Rick Rubin produced them, but bands like System of a Down would be pretty much entirely dry mixes. And I remember that being one of the hardest things to do, is to get a dry mix to sound good, to sound professional. And when you eventually figure that out, again, it's just ear training, but if you can make a track dry, he says playing a track back's got loads of delay and reverb on. What does this track sound like with no effects? Because there's no reverb on a lot of this. I'll put some on that lead. Let me just check. Obviously, there's no reverb on the bass. Anything on the beats? This sounds dry to me. Nope. So it's just on instruments. Okay, so we got some Atmos reverb on the piano. Let's take that off. What are you? These are all the samples. Oh, I put some slap delay on that guitar. That was dry. That's dry. That's dry. Right, so this... Let's take you off. There is some reverb in the sample. 1 second. Let's make an extreme example of this. Let's gate that out. I'll do. Trance it back. Vocal.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their neck. Just to look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go, collateral effect.
Got a bit of spring reverb on it.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their neck. Just to look at me, I don't mean.
Again, lo-fi reverb because I want kind of gentle, not bright, polished sound to this entire track.
Dancing around in my
That sounds pretty dry.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them
If the track survives.
Just to look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go, collateral effects. All the boys say I'm a little salty, but they kinda like it when I get a little ballsy. Gotta level up, gotta get naughty. They're allowed to leave when my legs get palsy. Yeah.
That lead. That sounds like it's got a little bit on the sample already. But that one's screaming out for reverb now. Everything else is dry. But other than that... this has already got the reverb on. That's already got the reverb on it. But yeah.
Dancing around in my tight dress, dancing around in my tight dress, dancing around in my tight dress, dancing. Like it when I get a little naughty, but they kinda like it when I get a little naughty.
Sounds pretty good though as a dry mix.
Like it when I get a little
Nothing immediately terribly wrong.
Like it when I get a little naughty.
Just not as chill. Obviously, I'm going for chill, so that's the reason I add reverb to, like I say here. The reason I have one thing, if you are adding reverb, obviously try not to. But like I say, the only thing that's screaming out for reverb here is the guitar. Maybe this, which I had on earlier, obviously. But let's just put some on the guitar. Rev. The reason I make these racks is twofold. We'll have to go over the send versus insert conversation. Obviously, let's just add a normal reverb. I don't care what reverb it is, really. There we go. That's all it needs to be. Done. How far back do you want that sound to be? How much atmosphere do you want? That's all it is. The reason I make the rack is because by default I can then all this is the plugin, which is the standard Ableton one here. Nothing special. But I have a pre-EQ which I control here. By default I have about 400 upwards. Before 400 and below cut out. And you don't really need a lot in the highs either. This is a guitar, so it's not actually going to make a great example because guitars don't really have a lot above 5K anyway. But you definitely want to curb how much of the sound is being reverberated, because low sounds with reverb on get out of control very fast, get very muddy. And the very top of your track, where the hi-hats and your the sibilance of your vocalists are, if you've got vocals in the track, things like that, the really sizzly stuff up there, that's where a lot of your fast details are. The fastest sounds, the fastest vibrations are in the high frequencies. They happen very quickly. That's where your transients are too. So you don't want those to be too blurred by a reverb either. Let me put this on the entire track so you can hear. If I let this go into the hi-hat range, you can see what a mess that becomes. And likewise, you don't really want to be lengthening bass notes very. So So having some kind of cap on the most EQs have this stuff built in as well, by the way. Ableton does have one here. I just prefer the control from an EQ, so I built it in. And then your only other consideration is obviously the length of it. That's just personal. That depends on the tempo of the track, how much atmosphere you want, whether it's like a room sound, closer, shorter, or whether it's like a background wash. Obviously, this is on the entire track, so I'm just showing you the extreme example. You wouldn't put this on an entire track. Yeah, that's kind of all you really need to. It shouldn't be any more complicated than that. Obviously, you need a good ear, which you develop over time for having the taste for how much reverb. Usually, it's a lot less than you think. And please try not to judge reverb on headphones if you can, because headphones are binaural; they're not stereo. So your sense of left to right is skewed badly on headphones. It's very hard to judge stereo stuff on headphones because they're not stereo. So, yes, some reverbs, like if you're having problems with the reverb taking over, some reverbs like the Tal. These are all free, by the way. All the plugins I use are free. I say all, most. The Tal reverb has a ducking feature. Ducking with a D. I didn't swear. Which means it lets the original sound through first before it lets any reverb afterwards. They don't get mixed up. They don't interfere with each other. So that's another way of cleaning up. So in other words, it will only let the reverb through when there's no sound coming in, if the ducking is all the way up. It's another way of having clean reverb. But yes, first of all, try to find sounds and just have a track going that doesn't need any reverb. Well, like I said, there's no magic process to this. You can see most of these, there's no magic processing going on any of these sounds I've got going on here. This is to be able to filter the drums. That's not an EQ decision. This is an EQ decision. All my top loops are high passed away from the kick. The kick has nothing on it. There's nothing on the group. This is my sidechain for my voice that you're hearing right now. So the music ducks when I speak. That's not a processor on the track itself. But this is all, you look at the bass guitar. Like I say, I have that multi-band sidechain, but I do have the low band turned up below 100 hertz because, as we talked about earlier, bass guitars have a weak fundamental. What have I done to the piano? Obviously got rid of the lows. That would be direct. The pianos cover a full range of sound, by the way. Pianos are one of the few instruments that cover like all frequencies. Obviously synthesizers too. Keyboard instruments probably is the best way of describing that. So I've got a tiny, this is a mixed decision. This is not, you don't make this judgment in solo. What you do is the whole thing is playing back. And you decide, right, I can't hear the piano. Do I just turn it up? Ah, no, turning it up adds to the mud. I don't want the mud. I just need these up a bit. Just a couple. Not the main instrument. It doesn't need to be at the front. I just want to be reminded that this is planting chords on the one. So I just want those bits there. That's all that decision is. This is to make it mono compatible a bit more. I've turned down the side channel because it's very wide. Pianos are naturally too wide for a lot of club music. If it's a realistic piano, that is. So I've turned down the side channel so I can judge it more like a mono track. And then, as you saw, that track's got nothing on it. That's not doing anything. We've got sidechain. Probably off the vocal. What is that? Yes. So I've sidechained off the vocal because the guitar and the vocal are directly competing. So whenever the vocal comes in, the guitar gets ducked. Or you could make an arrangement call there and just mute the guitar when the vocals are in. Depends how much energy you need or whether it loses too much when you do that. But yes, what I'm trying to get at is there's no magic processing here. It's just EQ, filters, getting out the bottom end mostly. And if you can get a track to work like that, just from picking the sounds, carving out some of that low end space for your bass, a few side chains, that should be it. Like your core should be done. That should be all you need. And then the reverb is just the icing on the cake. It shouldn't be like a make or break of the sound. It's just personal preference then. Do you want some ambience and some atmosphere? If so, add some reverb. Try not to add too much. That should literally be the decision. Hopefully that makes sense. If you only have headphones, by the way, then check in mono often. So have something on your master ready. I've got this here. Make sure you can listen in mono. Make sure that works in itself. Because people listening on every other device apart from headphones, like phones, TVs, soundbars, they're going to get a sound much closer to this than this. Now, the difference on my tracks isn't going to be huge because I don't actually go very wide. I make too much club music. I'm just completely trained to be mostly mono. I'm not trying to impress headphone users with my tracks usually, so I'm probably too mono for most kind of pop producers, I imagine. But so it's not a good example to listen to my stuff in mono, but do have it ready to check often. More than I do so here on the stream. I'm not actually, this is not my workflow when I'm streaming to you guys. I'd be taking a lot more breaks. I'd be referencing a lot more because I wouldn't be worried about copyright. I'd be checking in mono every 5 minutes. Switching it up, I'd be listening to frequency bands like this. Do this often as well, because this is part of how you keep your ears fresh. So another free plugin, Isolate, or you've probably got one built into your DAW. I can listen to, in this case, 80 hertz and below. I can check my reference. Are we in the same key? If so, do we match in terms of like where the kick is ahead of the sub? Are we bouncing in a similar way? Does my low mid sound cluttered? Or have we still got some danceability there? And just isolating frequencies like this for a few minutes at a time. If you don't have separate speakers to check on, you've only got headphones. This is a good way. Your ears will get used to this. If you just do this for like a minute or two, your ears will start to adjust to this as the sound being normal. And then eventually, when you unsolo that, you'll hear a bunch of new things. And your ears will kind of get a fresh perspective again. And you won't be as lost, hopefully. So just change it up a lot. Change it to mono. Change up your frequency bandwidths. Change the volume. Do a crank test. Not for long. Don't damage your ears, but do a crank test at loud volumes, because our ears are not linear. You will hear different frequencies at different volumes. Especially make sure you check when it's quiet. Do most of your mixing quietly, because if you can make a track punch and sound exciting when you are listening to it quietly, 90% of your work is done. And especially if you're ever trying to get vocals to balance, make sure you're listening quietly, because that's probably the best way to hear whether a vocal is sat just nicely on top or too far forward or too far back. Bashi, do I do the panning in mono? Yes and no. I'm probably the worst person to ask, because I don't pan anything. Either the source is already stereo, in which case I will judge whether it's too wide or too narrow.
Dancing around.
Like a lot of my synth basses will be mono, so for the headphone users, I will put a mono safe width enhancer on. So that's how I get the width from that. I don't pan any other tracks because, well, certainly not the one thing I would advise is, again, just like the reverb, don't pan tracks to solve problems. Pan tracks because you're trying to paint your canvas, right? And again, I wouldn't advise it for club music though either. So this is a separate thing. If it's a pop track, fine. If it's balanced, beware that anything you pan extreme left or right will be 3 dB or 6 dB louder, depending on the pan law of your DAW. It will be 3 dB or 6 dB louder, 4.5 or whatever, than the middle. So by panning, you're changing the balance of the track. Whatever you do, don't pan something over to one side so that it avoids clashing with the one on the other side, because most people still listen in mono, essentially mono. People don't listen on stereo systems anymore. We have phones, we have sound bars, we have TVs, we have cars. Anyone who's not on headphones, and especially clubs, are in mono, effectively mono, even if it's not literally mono. The speakers are very close together. So there's no point panning things to solve any problems. You solve all your problems in mono, frequency clashes, dynamic clashes, right? All that stuff gets solved in the middle first. And then if you would like to have a hi-hat on one side, by all means do it. But if you're making club music like I make a lot of, beware. Anyone for the clubs that do play in stereo, which obviously you don't have control over. You don't have control over which clubs play in mono, which clubs play in stereo. You need to make sure whatever you have panned, you are fine with only half the audience hearing, because those stood near the right speaker will get your hi-hat. So you better pray that hi-hat is not key to the groove. It's just detailed or fluff or, you know, whatever you want to call fairy dust, whatever you want to call your extra little. Make sure that kind of stuff is panned, the non-essential stuff. If it's key to the groove or key to the melody or the harmony, or I would keep it down the middle personally. What you will see me panning on is things like, I do this a lot on, so the BBC Orchestra plugin, whenever I'm using the strings from this, in fact, let's just bring this over, shall we? So right now we're listening to, let's put the cellos on. That's nearer the range. So you can see what they've done and what you hopefully you can hear if you're listening in stereo right now. Each member of the orchestra is recorded where they were sat in a real orchestra, which is always this format. You always have cellos on the right, brass on the main brass on the right, horns on the left, violins on the left, blah, 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 blah. So when I'm doing pop, not orchestra, like if I just need a high string, like if I just need that. Oh, I've just deleted all of it. If I just need that on my track, then I don't want it over there. It's too wide. So it's both, if you listen to this in mono, it's almost half as loud. So I will get a plugin like the A1 stereo control, and I will both narrow it and pan it so it's roughly middle. Using my ears only, don't use meters for this. And then there's not such a gaping difference in the mono, and then I can judge how to mix that string in terms of its level and frequencies. So that's when you'll see me pan. But I barely do it. Actually, I tell a lie. If I have a full vocal stack, like, you know, 8, 10, 20 vocals doing harmonies, that kind of thing, I may pan them around. I like panned vocals, as long as the main one obviously survives in mono. Things like harmonies aren't, unless the harmony is somehow key to the melody, like a question and answer thing, then I'm not bothered about those getting lost a little bit in mono. Or going up in mono, in fact, because panning stuff can make it louder in mono sometimes. Again, depends on your pan law. BBC Orchestra is free. Big Mike, yes. I wish there was a baritone. I wish there was a baritone trombone in the BBC plugin. It's not there, is it? Red King. Oh no, they do have bass trombones. Sorry, my lie. What was I thinking of? I wanted a bass something that this didn't have. Did I need a bass clarinet at some point? I can't remember what I needed from it. It didn't have it. Pan Lore, Lore. Yeah, BBC free is great. You get you only get a few articulations. Not the, it's not as comprehensive as a full library, but if you're just doing basic, you just need some basic strings and brass for pads and the like. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. That's a great question, Toxic. Do you need the BBC TV license to use the plugin? I have so many letters from the BBC telling me they're going to visit and make sure I don't need a TV license. And they have never visited. Absolutely ridiculous system. I mean, I understand why it exists. Because there's no adverts on the BBC, but the way they enforce it is absolutely diabolical. We won't go into that. That's a good question, Eliza. Is there a song that is a hit that was completely in mono? I'm not aware of one. Obviously, the Beatles songs were early Beatles were mono, I think, the very first lot, because that was pre-stereo. So actually, pre-19. What would it be? When would stereo be? They only really started messing with it in the 60s, didn't they? (1958), apparently. So yeah, everything before, any hits before 1958 would have been mono. There's your answer. I don't know about of recent times. There probably is. No, the Beatles didn't invent the stereo. That's not what I said. I'm just thinking they were the biggest people who had hits. Actually, I'm not sure of how much of their first record was a hit. you know. Who invented stereo? Good question. I should know this. I probably learnt it in university. I won't look it up. But what if I've layered pianos? Wouldn't I pan them? No, I rarely layer pianos, to be honest, because then they go out of tune. You know this, right, Steve? If you're going to layer a piano, you have to accept a minimum amount of chorusing, because pianos aren't in tune, not even digital ones. So if I was to take these two, let's try the micro. We have this one, realistic one, and this dance one from. Sorry, that's not it. By the way, plugin is not Pultec is Pultec. Piano Tech is not free. Sorry, that's just my favorite paid realistic piano plugin. This one's free. Great if you want to do 90s dance. Trying to play with one hand here, sorry. So if you layer these two, you'll notice they start to chorus. As in, let me just show you what chorus is so you can hear it out. Chorus is a detuning effect when two things aren't exactly. You'll start to hear a bit of this. Right, listen. Can you hear it? Let me try with two more similar sounding pianos. Let's get the M1 from Criminal. That one. Here we go. So when they're on their own, perfectly in tune sounding. When they're together, phasey, very 80s sounding, which is fine if you want that effect, but a lot of the time you don't want that because it softens the sound. Oops. For me, this is not a better sound than one of these turned up. Remember, when you're judging layers, if it's an equal volume layer, then you're adding about 6 dB. So you can't suddenly say the one that's not layered is weaker, because it might just be a volume thing. Anyway, yes, I don't like that chorusing effect. If you want to know the technical reason for it, then you need to look at how pianos are made, which then filters down to how pianos are sampled. But yes, pianos don't, they're not perfectly in tune like digital instruments. They're actually deliberately tuned, what's called stretch tuned. The higher you go on a piano, the sharper the notes go. And depending on the length of the strings, depends on how sharp they have to tune them. Otherwise, the octaves don't line up. It's called stretch tuning. And the lower you go, the flatter they go. So they're not perfect. So it's different for every piano, and they all kind of go out. They detune each other like this, which is okay, but it's just a sound I really don't like. So I don't like layering pianos. And if I was going to layer them, why would I layer them? Like, for example, if we did take the original layer, which is less offensive. So maybe you like the warmth of this one, but you need the top end bite from the dance piano, right? That would be a valid reason to layer these. But then why would I pan one? Because then only the right-hand side would have the attack. And again, people in the club, if this was this kind of line, if it relied on rhythm, only the people stood on the right-hand side, where I'd panned the dance piano, would get the groovier piano. So no, I wouldn't layer. I wouldn't pan the layers. Unless I had like 3 or 4 layers for something, like, and why would you pan a layer? I'm trying to think of an actual good reason. I just don't do it. I just don't do it. I'm trying to think of a good reason too. Shows you how long it's been since I would have done it. Anyway. Oh, Cook's on it. Who's asked for track feedback? There we go. Mike Chatterton says, yeah. Solado, power. Listen to it in mono. The piano completely disappears. Someone forgot to check. There's a lot of, I'm not saying it's essential to success, by the way. There's many tracks out there which disappear in mono. So they have very bad club versions, in other words, but it just means they don't last in the club. That's all it means. Yeah, if I wanted piano width, I wouldn't do it with panning at all. As Mike says there, send all the pianos to one place and use a mono safe widening plugin. Like my favorite is well, I've made my own version. Just called, it's in my racks, free racks, if you want to grab that from the video. But it's just a rip off of Voxengo Stereo Touch, which takes a little longer to set up than wider, but you just drop this delay to below 30 and then turn up the amount. And then you have a nice mono-safe, wide piano. Like I say, don't pan to solve problems. If your problem is that it's not wide, then you don't do that with panning. Because also, if you didn't know, panning isn't really a way of achieving a wide mix. Believe it or not, because the human ears don't. All panning does is turn it up in one channel and not the other, which has got nothing to do with how humans hear direction. You know this? Panning is like a binaural problem. You're turning it up in the right ear, not the left ear. Whereas the way humans perceive direction, if you want like an actual 3D wide mix, you need some going to the left ear, but slightly delayed. That's how we perceive direction. Something to the right of us is both louder in our right ear, but it's still in our left ear. It's just a lot duller, and it's delayed. And that's how we perceive direction. So if you want really truly wide stuff, you can use that effect, psychoacoustic panning, or Haas delays and things like that. They're also not monocompatible though. So I do have a psycho panner here, actually. I think I made one many years ago. Work in progress. Oh, there we go. Psycho panner. Be interested to see if you can hear this across YouTube, actually. Have you got good stereo playback? What should I do? I'll do it on the voice, because we're very attuned to voice.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all.
Turn the reverb off.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their neck. Look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go.
This is what good panning sounds like, but it's not mono compatible.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their necks. Look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go, collateral effects.
And if you look at the meters, we're still getting plenty in the left and right.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their necks. Look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go, collateral effects. All the boys say I'm a little salty, but they kinda like it when I get a little ballsy. Get a little.
So that's just basically timing delay and frequency manipulation. If I was going to pan something for width and 3D-ness of a mix, I would do it more like that way, and it would have to be a non-essential element, or it would be for special effect, just like at one point in the track. Anyway, panning rant over. I am your target audience, am I? DMO Music. Now, those of you who want feedback, just watch my video on track feedback, because I explain lots in that video about how feedback on one track without knowing what you are trying to achieve, as in like the full goal, like to give you feedback on one track, I would have to do like an hour's consultancy on your brand, your career aspirations, you know, your release schedule, your identity campaign. There's just so much more that goes into it than just listening to one track and telling you if I like it or not. Unless it's a very, very specific, like, I'm fine giving feedback on stuff like, why does this chord sound weird to me? Because I could probably solve that. Musical questions are kind of, you know, if you're still new to music, I could probably solve your chord problem. But anything like just generally like, what, you know, is this track good? Will it succeed kind of thing? I can't help you with that. There needs to be a much, much, much longer conversation that involves me saying things like, have you studied your audience psychographics, geographics, and demographics? Who are you aiming for? Where do they hang out? What are their brand associations? Do they have children? There's audience avatars, that kind of thing. We'd have to go all the way into that kind of thing. How long have you got? 5 years, 10 years? Are you rich already? How much money can you throw at the initial, or is it purely organic? Yeah, it goes, as they say, it's 80-20. Whatever you think it is, it's not what it is. It's 80-20. 80% of your future success in a career of music is not the music. 20% is the music. 80% is all the other stuff you're yet to learn. But yeah, in terms of hearing, like, the reason I don't do feedback for mix solutions is me spotting a problem with your mix does nothing for your ear training. Because if you could hear it, you would have heard it already. So me telling you that something's wrong isn't you know, it doesn't help you at all. Pointing that out, it doesn't stop it happening next time. I might say your bass is a little muddy, and then because you might think that's really useful, and then start listening out for all of your bass lines in the future. Just checking that they're not too muddy. But the problem is, because you still don't have the ear training, you might just be removing the mud out of basses that don't deserve mud, that don't deserve it. And then you'll end up with some mixes which are the complete opposite, but have really thin basses in them. Just because you were arbitrarily thinking, oh, I've got a general problem with muddy basses because I listened to one track and told you that the bass was muddy. So it doesn't help in that sense. Like I say, chords are pretty black and white. I can tell you've pressed a wrong note from the, or you've forgotten what scale you're in, or you've become confused with major versus minor or something like that. That's pretty black and white. I can tell you why you would probably think a chord sounded weird, or why it doesn't fit the vocal, or what bass notes to press versus what the chords are. But again, not anything beyond that, really. Techno. You can't remember the name, but there was a famous hip hop producer who mixed a whole album just using one speaker. Yes. That would be, I think it's Serban Ganeer, isn't it? There's one of the hip hop crowd which uses, they're commonly referred to as a grot box. I have a pair. They're called Oratones. And preferably you just have one of them to listen in mono. It's a terrible small single speaker, no tweeter, no subs. So it just carries a mid range, but it's a great indication of the average kind of. If you can get it to work on there, especially judging vocal levels, they're great for that. But some people get so used to them that they can judge by how far the speaker moves, how good their bass is, even though you can't actually hear it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Serban Ganeer. Oh, it's one of those guys. Like, I heard it on Pensado's Place many years ago. Back when we all used to watch that. Anyone still watch Pensado's Place? Or anyone not aware of Pensado's Place? American engineer that he was one of the first to champion in the box mixes, actually. Had some big hits with the likes of Christina Aguilera. He started doing his own YouTube podcast type thing before that was even trendy. And he had some very famous people on there doing chats. It was always fascinating to hear other people's processes. Batter's Box. Yes, Chris. Was that the plugin review? Oh no, it was if you had one piece of gear to recommend or something, wasn't it? Batter's Box. They had to name one piece of gear for the gear porn lovers out there. Yes, I've not tuned in for many years, Nico. Nico? I keep calling you Nico. It's Nick O. Or is it? Or do you, up to you. Because I'm essentially monolingual, I get really paranoid about how I pronounce other people's names. Back to what DMAO said earlier, though. When you said, I am your target audience, that means you're only trying to impress people already in the industry. So not the public. So that tells me you're a hobbyist and don't want a career. Therefore, my feedback is useless anyway, because you can do what you like. By all means, you can have a brand making music where you only try to impress other engineers. But in seriously, if you want a career, then you need to the feedback you need is put it out there, especially if it's mixed concerns. Because we talked about Pauser last stream. There's so many tracks out there which don't sound what we quote unquote professional. It's a completely alien concept. Professional sound. It doesn't exist. Professional sound is what the public are willing to listen to. That's all it is. If the Clash had got I'm trying to think of a yeah, if the Clash had got Max Martin to produce the album, different eras, but you wouldn't have got a punk band. You know what I mean? And it would have sounded really good. But the point of that album, the point of that band was certainly not to sound good because of the message. It was protest music. And again, not even in the realm of club music, not all club music has to sound a certain way. Because there's lots of ways of achieving groove. Yes, I've done many rants on this toxic. I did a video on feedback and a video on amateur sound. Yes, exactly, Red King. If you've ever mixed Italo disco, sorry. But I mean, that goes, if you look at my, I won't do it just in case we lose sound again, but in that video ideas document I showed you a while back, one of my video ideas is called The Ballpark is Wide. And the point is simply, if you just drag in 4 or 5 reference tracks, even if they're in the same key, obviously 4 or 5 successful reference tracks, but as soon as you get a handful together, especially if they're by different artists, you will realize how wide the ballpark is. They will have completely different sounds, completely different kick drums, completely different piano sounds, completely different, even all in the same genre. And they all work in their own way. So you can't have this attitude on it has to be a certain way because you just don't know what people will like. And that, especially the public. What you think doesn't sound professional is just someone else's, that might be fresh, might be new, just like Pauser did recently. Anyway, let me scroll up here. What have I missed? Yeah, in other words, just don't worry about, I think I can see Cubes on Fire asking similar questions. Yeah, don't worry about the mix. All you can do is as good as you can. You need to be spending the rest of the time finishing other tracks so you can get them uploaded, so you have more than one track out every year, because that's how people are going to find you. And it doesn't matter what the stuff sounds like at that point. You need to start building a profile and an audience and a story and an identity. All that stuff has to come. So you can't be stuck on making things sound nice. That's the least of your problems. What did US? DJ Nesso. Official. Official? Ooh. Honored to have you in the chat, official person. Full step-by-step piano house tutorial would be nice. I love your videos. Thank you. I do seem to be stuck on the piano house processing chain. I've done several videos on it. I've done one for, if you look at my, I've done 2 piano house videos. One on the sound, one on the writing. If you're not a fan of the M1 sound, then it's probably not the best tutorial for you, but I just used a free M1. If you're not aware of it, it was the... Oh. What was it called? I think it was that one. Piano house from the video. So I showed you how to get this in my video. Any second now. Wait for Ableton scrolling to catch up. Have you heard this one? It does depend on what era of piano house you're talking about as well. Tom, would I recommend publishing early? Always. Always. Yes. Oh, Cubes on Fire, don't apologize for the question. No, no. I encourage all questions. Sorry if I was a bit dismissive in the tone. I'm kind of a generally jolly character. I laugh at a lot of things. I'm not laughing at you. Just laughing. I laugh in general at situations. No, yeah, it was a good question. It does come up a lot, yes, but no, don't be... don't apologize for asking any questions. That's what these streams are for. Regarding publishing early, Tom. Yes, because no one ever thinks they're ready. So, you know, DistroKid is what? I think it's less than £50 for the year. So it's a lot. If you're the type of person that needs to buy a gym membership just so that the financial outlay will be holding you responsibility to actually get some exercise done. In the same way, if you pay DistroKid 50 quid for your year's license to release music, I can't remember how many tracks that gives you, but trust me, it's more than most people would release in a year. At least the outlay of some money will make sure you finish a bunch of stuff, hopefully. And and it will end up on stores. And you just, the fact that it's out there means it probably won't do any numbers, but it might do. You just don't know. At the very least, I don't know about publishing, but at the very least, I would have everything up on SoundCloud or something, some public-facing, easy to find. Just get it done early, because that whole process of not feeling ready, being embarrassed, being nervous about what people will say. You have to get that monkey off your back as soon as possible. You just have to, and it forces you to, it will get you into the practice of finishing tracks as well. Just get them up and out. I mean, look at my release schedule. It's ridiculous. It's I can't remember what we're on. Three tracks a week, maybe, at the moment. Oh, the basic thing on, yeah, there we go. 20 quid on DistroKid. 21 euros. We'll get you $25, whatever. We'll get you a year's worth of releases on DistroKid. Yep, I agree with, I mean, what Mike is saying about putting on Instagram and TikTok. I would do that after they are released, so they can be tracked, just in case they're stolen. The other reason I would recommend publishing early is, a legal thing as well. It helps with that. But in general, no one thinks they're ready, because there's always something to learn tomorrow, me included. I'm still learning. But at some point you realize that will never stop. So you have to just let people know where you're at right now, finished or not. Most of my releases are just ideas. What about this? How does this sound? I should probably call some of my tracks that. Yeah, these aren't finished ideas, really. But I like it. I always put the instrumentals out as well, just in case a better vocalist wants to top line it, because you never know. What new thing have I learnt in the past 90 days? Oof, you're expecting me to remember 90 days. Good question. Binary Solo. I wonder. Let me look at the last 90 days of Mixdown, see if I can jog my memory on a valuable lesson here. "90 days." Where are we? Here we go. Right, so it's all the soulful stuff, I think. Call me, call me, call me, call me, call me, please. Call me, call me, call me. A fuego. Oh, me and Yarden are doing a collab, by the way. Hopefully released soon.
Don't you start again, break my heart again. Yeah, I know that you know that we're more than friends. Don't you start again. Say it does always on my mind. Never be the same, never be the same. We'll never
What
be
have
the
I
same.
learned?
We'll never be.
Yeah, I would, DMAO, I would second that. Labels are not interested in investing in artists. I can't remember how long ago it was, but the last major label, probably Universal representative I saw talking about it was, it's approximately, if you really want to make even a dent in society on a mass marketing scale, which is how pop operates, as in the actual music industry, the industrialization of music. Remember, that's not the same as the music scene, the music industry. If you want to break a new artist, it's about 2 million, roughly. Minimum is what they have to look at to even make a dent. So 99% of labels now just wait for something to go viral on TikTok and then sign the artist. To the point where existing contracts of big artists, like we saw Halsey complain about this, the label would not release her record until she'd made a minimum number of viral TikTok posts. And she didn't want to.
Oh my gosh, don't you know? Coming with the rhythm and the flow. Oh my gosh, don't you know? We're gonna hit them with the rhythm and the flow, yeah. Oh my gosh, don't you know? We're gonna hit them with the rhythm and the.
One thing I have learned is finding garage vocals is really hard. This one was good though.
Oh my gosh, don't you know? Coming with the rhythm and the flow. Oh my gosh, don't you know? We're gonna hit them with the rhythm and the flow, yeah. Oh my gosh, don't you know? We're gonna hit them with the rhythm and the flow. Rhythm and the flow, rhythm and the flow, rhythm and the flow, rhythm and the flow. Yo, my DJ live on deck. Yo, my DJ live on deck. Yo, my DJ.
It's probably been used already.
We bring the vibe in check. UKG live and direct. We bring the vibe in check.
Rhythm on the flow, rhythm on the flow.
We bring the vibe in check. We gonna make them with the rhythm and the flow.
I'm feeling cold and lost in the moment. It's taking over me. Keep your composure, you know that I want ya. Can you just hold that beat, 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 beat?
I'll tell you something I did. I can't remember if it was this record. I could probably just drag in the organ. But when you've got an organ bass like that, the M1 organ, they're very hard to put in tracks, organ basses, because they're only a few sine waves stacked. They don't have a lot of high frequency content. Overall, they're a very dull sound. Same problem with a Rhodes piano. So I had to do all kinds of processing to get it to jump out, like go way overboard than I would recommend any new person try. I had to do more processing on this bass than I'd ever done in my life to get it to actually stick out in this busy mix. I can't remember if it was this track. DSME Lights Out. Let's have a look at that one. It doesn't sound like it's that one. Lights Out, Speed Garage. Do 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 do. That's a good vocal because I'm singing it. That's always a good test. If you find yourself like weeks later humming a vocal and you can't remember where it's from, and it turns out to be one you had. So it's 5 basses on that track. Was it this one, or is that just part of my template? Let's hope we don't crash. I always get paranoid bringing in. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Right. So here's a 120 BPM rundown. So obviously, Actually, we'll talk about that as well. My sub isn't following the bass note for note. I'll talk about that. Something to be aware of. This isn't the most I've ever processed it. Yeah, so I'll show you the I can't remember what was the other track. This is a good starting point though anyway. So I found this. I just got the organ sound from a sample loop. I don't know why. I can't remember. I've obviously lost where my M1 bass sample has gone. And it's quicker to find things in Splice now than it is to search in Ableton sample library. I've not tried Ableton 12 sample search, but anyway. So my bass is an audio sample, not ideal, because changing pitch of an audio sample changes its quality. But we've got a separate subtrack for actual bass, so not a problem. We're jumping in octaves, which I'll come to later. That's part of the problem. But yeah, the processing I had to do to get this to stand out. You can hear how this sounds without any how dull a normal organ bass is. So I've got bit crushing on. So that's generating new high frequencies from virtual aliasing, which is a digital artifact. Normally this is something you would try to avoid. For example, a good plugin would be ridiculed if it aliased, which means it's not been programmed properly, but I'm introducing it on purpose. And then to enhance that even more, I am parallel distorting the mid-band. That's also being mixed in parallel. A heavy bump here. We must have been missing some low mids. Now, here's a good lesson for you. So if you have a bass line that's jumping around a lot and you do have enough control in that you can generate a separate subtrack for it, i.e. you know the notes. The sub doesn't have to jump around in octaves. Because if you just want the sub to hold the subs, you can just keep them in the one octave. Follow the rhythm. So yeah, don't be, again, this is all judged in the complete mix, the context of everything. It's not something I do every day. Oh, this is the oh, I forgot. Yeah, we had I tried to do a bit of a Prodigy breakdown with it. I was thinking of Charlie when it's just a sub note and he says little bit of bass, little bit of drums. I wanted something like that.
Just turn the lights out, baby. In the nighttime, baby. Turn the lights out, baby. In the nighttime, baby. We lose control. We lose control. We lose control. We lose control. We lose control.
Yeah, just and again, look at this. This is stupid. This amount of top boost, because the filter's down on the Reese, but I still wanted some fizz. So this is all just experimentation. Again, we got parallel distortion, trying to get some mid frequencies out as well, but those mixed in slightly. Where's the automation? Oh, it's over here. That's just a filter cut off, if you didn't know. If you want to know how to do respaces, or if you want some free Vital patches, I've done a video on respace and the various types. I've just realized not all mixes of this track have that filter movement in them. I'm going to have to check my mix downs. But yeah, that was something I learned. Don't be afraid to go to extreme lengths. Red King screaming Leeds. That remind you of Leeds Warehouse. What's the reason I use Vital? Lots. The interface, the actual. I just got rid of everything, didn't I? It's faster to make sounds in because the interface is, the UI is just better. Automation, for example, if I want this envelope to go to this filter, I just drag it like that. That you don't have to do these things with the knobs. There's an extra oscillator here. Serum only has a dedicated sub oscillator. It's not flexible. And I often find myself needing 3 oscillators. Well, not often, that's a lie, but it's handy. Vital does have less distortion options, but I don't really find myself using the internal distortion. There's so many free external options for that. I don't see that as a downside. 3-band EQ instead of a 2-band. Not always, again, that useful. I don't hear any difference in quality at all. In fact, I do prefer a couple of Vital's filters, only by a tiny margin, though. Not anything groundbreaking. They're both great sounding synths. It's free, so when I do tutorials, I'm trying to spread as much education, which is real world applicable to people from all backgrounds. So there's no barrier to entry with Vital. Anyone can grab this. They don't have to be a Serum owner. And also in terms of teaching, it's easier to show. Because of the user interface, it's actually easy to show people how synthesis works. Yeah, I think that about covers it. If you miss the wavetables from Serum, by the way, then you can just grab them and pull them over. Wavetables are wavetables. They're just little audio samples, really. So yeah, I've pulled in the all the wavetables from Serum, from Massive, from Ableton's own wavetable. Got these free ones from Echo Soundworks, and that pretty much covers every single possible sound I've ever wanted to make, unless it's FM synthesis or phase distortion synthesis, really. In which case, there's other plugins for that, which are dedicated to those. Serum is no better at. Serum's even less flexible for FM synthesis than Vital is, so I'm not saying that's a downside to Vital. Yep, I just really like working fast, and that's yeah, Vital's pretty cool for that. Absolutely nothing wrong with Serum, by the way. Steve Duda is a legend. all respect and praise to the guy. I almost feel slightly bad undercutting his product by technically advertising Vital, especially as I think Matt Title has abandoned Vital a while ago. I mean, it's finished, you know, there's not really, I only have one gripe with it, which is that the individual filters don't have output levels. That's literally my only gripe with this synthesizer. Almost perfect. Yep, I'm very much in the same camp, Mike. I just use I don't spend too much time learning new plugins, especially synthesizers. The other thing is, once you know synthesis itself, subtractive, FM, etc., etc., there's very, very few new synths that come out which attract me because I'm like, I even if on paper, I mean, even if I, you know, some of the presets sound great on the synths, I just have no desire to install a bunch of synths on my and clutter up my computer because actually well, I mean, this is a me problem because I always design all my sounds from scratch, and I'm quick at doing that. I can imagine if you're not quick at doing that, it's quicker to install a bunch of synths and know where all the presets are. So, but yeah, I just use Vital for everything because I know it really well. I can program it really fast and usually gets 80, 90, 100% to where the sound was in my head or the sound was in the reference. Hello, Denise. Dennis. What's your problem? You can make songs, you know, structure, melody, chords, everything, but you're struggling with the sound, the mixing. Don't understand what you need to do. Well, you don't need to do anything. The only purpose of a mix is to make sure the track represents what the song does. So if it's a vocal track, can you hear the lyrics? Do they sound as emotional as they could, as the emotion in the track suggests? You know, is the person angry? In which case, how about adding some distortion to the vocals? Or is it very floaty? In which case, add some reverb, some very long, dark, distant reverb. That's kind of mixing in a nutshell. It's you have to translate what the track's about. There's no rules really, other than what I said in my how not to master video. You might have to manage your bottom end with some side chaining. It's kind of the only technical thing in order to be able to get towards commercial loudness. But loudness shouldn't be a goal in itself. The song is always this. Yeah. I would just, Dennis, I would just reference more. Reference right from the beginning as you're making the track. Not just when you finish writing the song. Try and do it from before that. Because your sound selection is your mix. You're probably struggling because you're selecting sounds to write songs with, but not to make tracks with. Very different things. Like I might write a song on this piano. Where is it? This one. I might write a song with that. Singing over it maybe, or drawing melodies. And it might only be playing block chords. But that will be nothing like the piano that ends up in the final track, if a piano ends up in there at all. So I would need to start finding references that sound like the song I want to write. And then you just start trying to copy their sounds, basically. Is until you've got your ear training, like this is part of your ear training, you have to figure out, right, what does their clap, do they have a strong backbeat? Is it a really big snare or clap? Does it have reverb on it? Is it bright? Is it dull? Is it short? Is it long? All these things. Is the clap late in the groove? Is it early in the groove? Is the kick drum prominent? Is it spiky? Is it dull? Is it long? Is it thuddy? Does it hit me in the chest or does it hit me in the bum? The pad sound. Is it fizzy? Is it warm? Is it wide? Is it narrow? You just have to try and then just copy these things as best as you can. In terms of mixing, I was showing I think Elijah this earlier. In terms of mixing, like this is all here because we were doing a demonstration. This track has barely anything on it, this one. Oh, sorry, this is the dry version. I was taking all the reverbs off, but when the sounds are sorry, we turned that piano right up, didn't we? This is not the original mix anymore. But the point was, these sounds are all just selected from referencing a lot. And very few of them have anything on at all. The only thing you do mixing wise as your general duties are make sure your bass frequencies don't clash. So a lot of the sounds I have, like all my drums, apart from the kick, have this high pass filter on here. To get rid of, stop it clashing with the kick. And then pretty much every other instrument, like the piano, etc., will have, again, you'll see low frequencies removed on the instrument group here. Piano's got nothing on it. This Rhodes isn't being used, but if it was, it's already high pass here. So you just have to kind of manage that. If a sound isn't behaving the way you want it to behave, then go and find another one. Like as an experienced person, this if I was to use this as a pad, this Rhodes sound here. Imagine I didn't have control over the this decay parameter. Imagine this was a sample. And I wanted to use this as a pad sound, and I couldn't find another Rhodes, and it was taking me a long time. Then, yes, one thing I might do is add a compressor, squeeze it to death, and then turn it back up. Now it behaves like a pad. Doesn't decay so fast. But that's an example of a mixing decision based on what you know you need as an outcome. I wouldn't apply a compressor to anything. Usually. Yeah, I wouldn't overthink it. Just get good at picking your sounds. Try not to leave that process till the end, because if you think mixing comes later, you're going to struggle trying to bend sounds that don't deserve to be bent into a different sound that they weren't in the first place, if that makes sense. You're going to be overdoing the work later on. You can't make one piano sound like another piano. with any amount of EQ, filtering, AI, any, I mean, maybe AI, like in the near future, probably, who knows? But the principle stands. If, you know, you need to get that stuff right from the beginning, and then you shouldn't have to do any mixing, really. The mixing you do should be like personal preference stuff. Like, do you want it to sound washy and wet? In which case, add a bunch of reverb. And that's your choice. It's not a right or wrong thing. Because the track deserves to sound washy and wet or dreamy or whatever you want to call that ambience, then go ahead and add reverb. But there's no absolute musts, or apart from maybe sidechain your bass from the kick drum. So that when the kick drum hits, the bass gets out of the way. That's probably about as much as I would recommend. It depends on genres and stuff. There's just lots to. It's obviously a very open question, that. But yeah, I would just thoroughly recommend reference so much more than you already are, and make sure you swap back to that reference every 20 minutes, because your ears will settle on your current sound after just 20 minutes. So if you've had your own song on loop for more than 20 minutes, you're already in trouble, because your ears are starting to think, this sounds great. You need to compare it to something else. Preferably same genre, same sounds, same key. The key thing only really matters for bass, but yeah, you need to compare yourself a lot more often from earlier in the process, and you should be fine. You shouldn't have to do a lot of mixing. Yeah, what Red King says there is very much an experience thing. Be careful of choosing sounds in solo. You know, one of the great things about Live's sound browser, Ableton, I mean, but when I say Live, I mean Ableton Live. The program is called Live. The company is called Ableton. Is while this song is playing, I can audition loops in real time. Like, this will be a completely inappropriate this track. Oh, it's because I've turned you down. Sorry. This is. Now, if I'd heard that loop solo, I might think. I mean, this is just a bad example for this particular style of track. So just go with the principle for now. But if I really like the sound of this loop on solo, without playing it back with the track, I could hear straight away it's stopping my bass from cutting through. So already, maybe I would think about, this would be a simple engineering mix type move. Maybe I do like all that rattly, what is at the top there? It's like a triangle. I don't know what the percussion is in this loop. It's eluding me right now, but maybe I just take the top bits. But don't go around soloing things unless you're trying to fix a problem. As it happens, that loop's way too distracting. Sounds like spoons. Yeah, that's something I got asked to make a video about peaking mantis. Warp modes in live. When it comes to warp modes, I do have some general rules, yes. So, if it comes to percussion that is transient, let me show you what I mean by transient, not transient. Let's just grab that one back, shall we? I would call that transient percussion. Whereas, let's take some shakers from the, I think the shovel pack, I think had some really, there we go. We got any shakers in here? Yes. Perfect. Right. So when it comes to drums, percussion, preferably if the transients are essential, like I was fine just throwing this in on the default complex mode here. Because it's part of the percussion group as a whole. So I didn't actually really care. But if this was a really important loop and it was maybe more standout in the track, maybe it's more of a feature, and I really need those snappy transients. If you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, let me just give you a little, let me put a transient plugin on so you can hear this is what I'm listening for when it comes to transient health of a sound. These. Where is it? Right, we're getting some on the kick drum there. The snappiness, the attack, the tightness at the beginning, that the tickiness, whatever you want to call that, that's the transient, right? And the problem is when you time stretch, the way time stretching works in general, the further away you go from the original sounds. Tempo, what was this? 124. Oh, we're 4 BPM away, not too bad. But as soon as you manipulate this in a time domain, all kinds of crazy things have to happen to the phase for the way these time stretch loops work. So you always lose something, especially if you're trying to keep the same pitch, which is what most of these modes do. So beats mode works like the old propeller head software, where it tries to chop it up as individual samples instead of take one big audio sample and smear it across time. This actually just chops it up into sections and just plays them back as normally, like you would on, as if you chop them onto separate sample pads. So you're going to get there's different modes for this. I put it in play forwards mode only. The problem with this is if we slow right down, you'll start to hear gaps now. Whoops. Let me take the side chain off this group. So you can hear that stuttering, right? Whereas in complex mode, this should be smooth. But you can hear the stretching. It's all phasey. It's not. Whereas the transients in this mode, it's a lot snappier, but we've got gaps. So at faster tempos, if you're not too far off the original tempo, this is not a problem. In fact, you can even shorten the loops if you want yourself. I've done this before with, like, particularly, actually, I'll show you with the shaker. So a natural shaker like this, you can see here, it's not very attacky. It's like a it's like a ramp and then a decay. So we don't have any clear transients here. So if I try to chop this up, bad things are going to happen because it doesn't know where to chop the transients. But if I tell it to chop it only on the 16th grid, instead of trying to detect its own, and then I can, for example, if I thought this shaker loop was too messy in the context of the mix, I can now say, shorten these playbacks every 16th, and we get a nice choppy. So that's one, the main reasons I would use beats mode is when you're dealing with beats, percussion, and you need to preserve transients, put it in playback forward mode. These other modes, this is, I don't like them. This is to try and solve the gap problem. So go back to this one. Put it in transients. Slow it right down so you can hear the gaps. This tries to fill the gaps by repeating. But you just end up with that. And this one tries to fill the gaps by reversing and forwarding certain sections. And neither to me sound very good for transit. So when I'm in beats mode, I use the forward mode only. And obviously on things that need to be percussive. So if you've got a very spiky bass, maybe you do it on a bass sample as well, but mostly drums, obviously. Vocals, I almost always use Complex Pro. Again, these effects are amplified the further away from the original tempo you are, how much processing it has to do. Let me see if I can get a good example here.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their neck. Just look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Dancing around in my tight dress.
Let me take all effects off. They're on the group, aren't they? Reverb, filter, delay, sidechain. That's not doing anything.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself.
I've got a de-esser on there.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their neck. Just look at me, I don't mean.
I'll leave the de-esser on to save our ears.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their neck. Just look at me, I don't.
It's a very bright vocal, that.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling.
Actually, that comes back to one of the binary solos questions. Remind me to point that out about vocal sibilance and vocal mixing. But yeah, I always choose Pro. It seems to maintain the natural sound of a voice far better for far longer stretching.
Dancing around in my tight dress, I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking.
Now, if you need to do a special effect, you can go the other way.
Dancing around in my tight.
If you want to do like Akai style.
Say I'm a little salty. Say I'm a.
Imagine I wanted to stretch this dam as damn, should I say?
Say I'm a. Say I'm a.
In a special effect way, Complex Pro would be the worst one to use because it sounds too good. By the way, if you hold Shift, you can stretch the sound. If you want this to sound extra rough, you could go back to beats mode. Or try one of the tones. Or textures modes. Sounds a bit more like the old Akai stretching. By the way, if you didn't know, so you'll probably never hear me mention tones or textures in any other context other than lo-fi, because these are the beats, tones, and textures is all that Ableton used to have before we got Complex Mode and Complex Pro. So tones is their first attempt at, well, actually, I don't think it's their technology. I think they licensed it. But anyway, tones and textures are their first attempts at time stretching. It's not very good. This was for monophonic things like basses and vocals. This was for anything polyphonic like pads, chords. So only use those if you want it to be deliberately lower quality, special effects kind of things. Repitch is just vinyl. So it will it will behave more like vinyl. So if you want to slow something down, it's going to go down in pitch. Or up in pitch.
Say I'm a
And that's actually that's the best way of maintaining pure quality in sounds like so I use repitch all the time on things like if I've got a do I have one in this track? Right, so we got a cymbal here. If I wanted to stretch this, because it's largely noise and not tonal, sometimes time stretch algorithms get really phasey on these. Not too bad actually, this one, but if I wanted to change it, I would, if it's mostly noise, like white noise, I would just repitch it. Because you maintain the quality of the noise, it won't start phasing and doing weird things. White, anything like cymbals or white noise or drums gets very what's called comb filtery when you start to time stretch it too much. So I would just use the repitch because white noise doesn't really have a pitch. So you're quite safe using the repitch mode, like the vinyl mode. Vinyl tape, whatever you want to call it, same thing.
dancing around.
And then I showed off, if you want to see my what the formants does, that's a harmonic relationship within a sound. I show off what that does in the garage vocal video. When you're pitching up a long way, for example.
Dancing around in my tight dress. I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their necks. Just look at me, I don't mean to be like that. Everywhere I go, collateral effect.
It tries to maintain the harmonic relationship. So this is supposed to sound like her singing up the octave,
Dancing around in my tight dress.
as opposed to what would normally happen when you pitch someone up and they actually, the harmonic relationship changes per octave, and then she would actually sound like a chipmunk.
Dancing around in my tight dress. I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their necks.
So this, the keeping the formants at 100% maintains the original harmonic relationship.
Dancing around in my tight.
So if you want natural pitching, if you're changing like things in, like sometimes I will do pitch correction in the, let's use the other, oh no, I can't because it's got reverb on it. I'll use this one, it's fine.
Dancing around in my.
Inside the clip, sometimes if it's got one note wrong or something, I might do this.
Dancing around in my tight dress. I'm feeling myself, got them all breaking their necks. Just look at me, I don't.
This isn't, obviously this is a spoken vocal, there's no notes here, so this doesn't work. But imagine this was an out of tune note that I'd put down by 2 semitones.
Their necks. Just look at me, breaking their necks. Just look at me, I don't mean to.
I would make sure the formants were on, so it didn't sound like a new vocalist. Otherwise, that would go very Darth Vader down there, right? Very a lot more manly. So if you just have to do subtle corrections, you need the formants. If you on the other hand, if you're going for special effects, you take the formants away and then let it do all the madness, right? So that's about it for the modes. Don't touch tones and textures unless you go in lo-fi. Beats for beats. Complex Pro for most sounds, especially vocals. Complex is just what Complex Pro was before Complex Pro, but they are different sounding. Complex sounds lower quality than Complex Pro, definitely, and it defaults to the non-formant adjusting mode as well. You don't get that option in Complex, but it is a worse algorithm overall. I don't see any point to it when Complex Pro exists. So yeah, there you go. That's everything. Is my mic still working? Good. I just realized I've not looked at the chat for a minute. You've been using Complex. It's not like it's not a deal breaker. I mean, I forget all the time. It defaults to Complex these days. You can't let it default to Complex Pro for some reason. Maybe it just takes up lots more CPU, but it is when you're listening on good equipment, you do notice the clarity difference on things like vocals. For a lot of sounds, it won't matter, but it's hardly like night and day. It's just a tiny thing. Yeah, so Red King says, yeah, it is a CPU trade-off. I presume so, because it won't let you default to Complex Pro. I wish it would, but you're not exactly losing. Don't go back and re-release all your tracks with Complex Pro turned on. It's not like I say, it's not a deal breaker. But oh, will the Black Friday stuff be covered? What time are we on? Oh God, 10 o'clock. Unlikely. I don't want to. For some reason, I have a conspiracy in my head that swapping to that other. It was when I changed to the other YouTube window that my microphone stopped working. So I don't want to tempt fate. I'll have to do a video for you. Yeah, as Toxic says, you can always bounce if you're struggling with CPU. Well, you don't even have to bounce it in. Just freeze it in your door of choice. They've all got freeze options now, haven't they? As it goes, my throat is beginning to get a little sore, peeps. So I may have to leave you and love you anyway. I just noticed Saltron said spin, spin, sugar. Yeah, it was a bit though, wasn't it? I can't remember if that was one of the references when I was making that track. I don't think it was. But it does remind us of that. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why it got to the point where 4 hours is all my voice can do. I'm not very... Having said that, I've had no liquids apart from a cup of tea at the beginning. We've not had a break, have we? So maybe it's just that. I should probably do more reaction content, so I could say less, but then I would have to put my... Oh! I need you guys to vote before we go. I'm going to risk losing my microphone by showing you... I will show you... yeah, let me swap to this. Does this work? 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, we're good, we're good, we're good. So the thing I want to ask you is, I was watching this streamer. I play this game called, a strategy game called Mechabellum. You probably haven't heard of it yet because it's in its early stages. And I saw this guy called The Rat. He's a Finnish chap from Finland. And he has this little rat avatar which animates whenever he speaks. Go on, speak. He's not speaking. This is a terrible...
How we parse your guy? Okay.
I want to see more of him speak.
Play pretty far back here because we have the range.
It's a very low speaking video. Anyway, so what I was thinking was, I'm just being lazy because a webcam, setting up a webcam means I have to tidy up, shave. I don't always have time. And it is important to see people's facial reactions, I think. Well, not facial reactions, but I wondered, what if I was to do this as what animal would suit me to make music tutorials? Because I think this is hilarious. By the way, he's a very good teacher, this guy.
I wanna be everywhere here.
When he's actually doing tutorials, this isn't a tutorial. This is just him playing. He's one of the top players in the game. He's one of the best. Not that the game has a massive audience yet, but I just find it really funny that there's a little rat that speaks meerkat. Yeah, I think I should do a meerkat and shout Steve. A seagull.
So does he go melter now?
A seagull.
What does he
Labrador.
Should I maybe put the nano here? Because then it would be flexible.
Goat.
This
Moose.
actually does nothing here, I think.
Oh yeah, goat
because I
would be
have to
good.
extend
A
the
few people have
frames.
called me goat, very kindly called me the goat. That would be great. Don't ruin the voice by face. Well, there is. And then suggest meerkat. Okay, Nick. Yes. I like these suggestions.
I'm not worried
Goat,
about this at all,
seagull,
and I don't think you can
meerkats.
kill the nano dude.
Parrot. Parrot's a good one.
Might be wrong. though,
Sheep.
with acid.
I'm writing these down as we speak. I have a notepad here. I'll probably put up a poll. Take a selfie and just, yeah, just make it like a South Park. Yep, just so the jaw, like the Canadians speak.
Well, it did indeed kill us.
Mike, I'm
not
struggling
by a lot.
to. Oh, Red Dead Redemption 2. Sorry, I was trying to. I blanked on the acronym for a minute there. RDR2. Yes, Red Dead Redemption. Yeah. just straight up Kenny. I'm not sure I'll be allowed to do that, but yep.
Is it
Joe
Typhoon
Rogan.
or missile strike? Probably the missile here.
Joe Rogan animated like a South Park character speaking with an English accent. Could be interesting.
This is the first time I think I'm playing like this.
The goat from Goat Simulator. Yeah.
Car fortresses.
I asked this chap, his name's Surrey. I asked this chap how he did the rat. He just said he got AI to draw it. Of course. Glenn Quagmire. I'll have to be careful with those properties, I think. Mr. Magoo. The blind dog from Mr. Magoo. Aardvark. Okay.
Hello, Samus.
Ben the Bear.
Now he needs to like he doesn't have fire.
Bear could be good,
He
yeah.
needs to go like HE here.
By the way, if you like strategy games, I recommend Mechabellum. Very good. My mic still working? Good. Zippy. George. Do I have to call everyone in chat George? A wolf. Right, well that's plenty. My initial reactions are seagull, appropriate, goat. That might be an ego thing. The rat does look like a meerkat in that video, so that a meerkat makes sense. It would be equally funny, I think. I've got to work out how to do the animation from my voice, of course. Yes, exactly. DMAO. Seagulls from the many tracks I've now produced with seagulls in them. I think 2, maybe 3. How to produce trip hop. Oof. Well, that's a video in itself, isn't it? Modern trip hop. Is there a modern trip hop? I'll be honest, I've not kept up with that scene since Massive Attack Portishead, the Bristol scene, which I love, by the way. But yes, that's a tale for another time, I think. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to order some food and chill, probably on Mechabellum. The paperclip from Word 95. Clippy. Was it Clippy? Oh, there was many good characters from Windows that were abandoned. There was a dog for that one as well, wasn't there? Yes, that would be good. I think LGR did a video on that. Splinter from the Turtles. Yeah, that's what the rat reminds me of, actually. Thank you, Cook. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Red King. Thank you, M. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Maraka. Thank you, DMAO, Nick, SGT, Toxic, Saltron, Techum, Binary Solo. Who else can I think of? Dennis, Mantis, Peaky Mantis, Relax Max. Thank you, Max. Yes. Good night, everyone. I need to play music and fade the stream out. Because that's how a professional does it, right? I think we do this. You see it behind the scenes. I'll draw the fade out now. And then I cut to this other screen and we should be good. Good night, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. A pleasure as always. If you didn't get your question answered, put it in the comments after this video when it goes up. And I'll try and get back to you. Or even make a video. Much love. Good night.